Hello and welcome. Solutions journalism. What does that mean? It means journalism that is intended to try and make an impact, try and find positive solutions to the many problems that we face. Now, when you switch on your TV news channels or you're reading your papers, quite often you'll see problem, and sometimes not even the problems that really matter. Issues like, rural poverty or developmental issues or child mortality, but problems, political problems. And then no real answers for how those can be dealt with. Now, why is it that more journalism isn't aimed at that? And that's partly what we're going to try and answer on today's panel. Find the solutions to how we can get more solutions journalism actually to operate. And by the way, it's not entirely as dark and dismal a picture as you may feel, because the International Journalist Network recently posted that there was once a time when newspaper editors did not really believe in solutions journalism, a type of journalism that chooses to cover effective, successful responses to current social issues, as opposed to just stories of failure and tragedy. Now, they thought readers would not be interested in that. But in 2008, Liberation, a major French newspaper, tried a test. They tried to, just for one day, they said, we're going to try and do solutions journalism instead. And the answer, many people didn't want to take part in that experiment. At the end of the day, it was the top-selling newspaper of the year. Now, was that a one-off? Perhaps it was. Can other experiments be done? Perhaps they can, and I'm sure they can. So it's a great pleasure to have joining us David Bornstein, who's the co-founder of the Solutions Journalism Network. He's an author, he's a columnist, and he's joining us from New York. So thanks a lot, David, for being with us. And we have a great panel here as well. We have Dr. P V Ramesh, who's the Chairman and Managing Director of the Rural Electrification Corporation, been the Principal Secretary Health at the AP government, and has lots of thoughts on how journalists could make a big difference in areas like child mortality or maternal health, and we will come to that. Dr. K Srinath Reddy, also interested in similar sort of things, is the President of the Public Health Foundation of India, Padma Bhushan winner. It's great to have you with us. Now, K Stalin, somebody's actually been doing a lot of work on it. Video volunteers, you're a human rights activist, and you've got people out there using video to tell stories, and you've actually gone to the grassroots and you're enabling them to do solutions journalism for themselves, and that's great. We'd like to get lessons from you. Pragya Vats is the General Manager campaigns at Save the Children India, so we'll get your sense and thoughts on it as well. And Rishi Suri is a senior editor at the Daily Milaap, and has also been working on, in some areas, like said, as contraception and others, the press, and the Urdu press in particular, was able to play a very prominent role in that, and we'll get some of those lessons. All right, let me start off straight away by David coming to you. Now, if you take a look at the way most media houses function, and they will be saying, look, our audience is interested in what Donald Trump said yesterday and what somebody said day before yesterday to attack Donald Trump, and what Kim Kardashian is doing, or, you get what I mean. That's what the audience is interested in. Why would somebody want to read or watch programs on rural health or maternity issues or child mortality? Our readers and our viewers are not interested in that. How would you answer them?
The reporting is driven by curiosity. These are stories about people who are trying to solve hard problems. It's like the detective solving a case in a way. The most popular TV shows, and in fact the most popular books around the world, are detective stories. What we have found, we've worked with close to 80 news organizations around the world now with the solutions journalism model, and what we have found is that these stories actually do quite well when they're told as these, in this sort of, we call it a how-done-it format, where you're basically driving the narrative by curiosity. People want to understand, how did this organization do better, or how did this policy make a difference against this important problem?
But sometimes, he's right, that's one of the ways of doing it, and there's no reason why, if done effectively, it can't actually be engaging. But is there still a struggle to go to an editor, or go to managing editors or people who are printing out papers, or publishers for that matter, and saying, look, these stories can be interesting. It's not just important to tell these stories, but they can be interesting to our viewers and readers. Is that a struggle?
I think it more than often it is. And I think the problem there is that the struggle between the journalists and the management plays in a big way into that. I think to effectively tell these stories and consistently have stories on sensitive issues like health, education, etc., the entire management structure of an organization has to be on board very, very strongly. It's tough to find that balance because you really have to see what will sell and what will won't. But as long as you can do enough mainstream stories to sustain yourself, I think you should devote the remaining amount of time to such sensitive issues and doing such kind of journalism.
So the reason why you, for example, would have started Video Volunteers, is it because you felt that these are not stories that necessarily get an audience or get traction in newsrooms?
There is a big issue of media diversity. I mean diversity, it is at both levels. the diversity of content and the diversity of those producing the content, which we believe are totally linked. So if you look at most mainstream media structures, we could actually figure out the social profiles and the religious profiles and the class profiles of the people producing this content. And the question then is that how much of that profile of the content producers reflect on the content that is being produced. We of course have this city-centric nature of news production, and then there's this the pressure of the breaking news, and then politics and sports and crime taking center stage in all news. Now if that were the situation, then all these so-called important, relevant issues that in India specifically 70% of the population go through every day is pushed under the carpet. The way to change that for us is to change the profile of the producers of content, which is why we went to communities to train them.